She was never supposed to be there. Tanith pressed herself deeper into the shadows behind the stone pillar, barely breathing as the mating ceremony unfolded before her. Hundreds of nobles filled the great hall of Valdres, their finest silks and jewels glittering beneath the chandeliers. They had come to witness their Alpha King finally take a mate. And Tanith had come to watch the man she could never have bind himself to another woman. She was nobody, a servant, a ghost who moved through the castle unseen, scrubbing floors and carrying linens while hiding a truth that would see her executed if anyone discovered it. The mark on her shoulder blade burned beneath her rough spun dress, a constant reminder of what she was, Veilborn, the last of her kind. On the dais, Lady Selene stood radiant in white and gold, her smile triumphant as she waited for the king to claim her. She was everything Tanith was not: noble, beautiful, worthy. And beside her stood Alpha King Kael. Even from this distance, Tanith could see the tension coiled in his body, could sense the barely leashed power that made every wolf in the room instinctively lower their eyes. He was tall and broad, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of a winter storm. Handsome in the way a blade was handsome, dangerous, compelling, dying. The whole kingdom knew their king's wolf was fading, that he had searched for his fated mate across every territory, every pack, and every corner of the realm and found nothing. This ceremony was his last hope. It was also Tanith's goodbye. She watched as Kael lifted Selene's hand, watched as the priest began the binding words, watched as her heart cracked open inside her chest. And then King Kael froze. His head snapped toward the shadows where Tanith hid. His nostrils flared, his eyes, those slate-colored eyes, locked onto her exact position with predatory precision. "Stop," he commanded. The single word silenced the entire hall. Tanith's stomach dropped as the Alpha King released his bride and descended from the dais. "There is someone here," he said, his voice low and rough, and nothing like the controlled monarch she had observed from afar for years. Someone who should not be hiding. Guards rushed toward the pillar. Tanith tried to run, tried to melt into the darkness the way her kind once could before they were hunted to extinction, but she was not fast enough. They dragged her into the light, forced her to her knees before the king. The crowd gasped. Lady Selene's face twisted with fury, and Kael stared down at Tanith with an expression she could not name. "You," he breathed. "It was always supposed to be you." Neither of them understood how dangerous those words would prove to be. The great hall of Valdres had been transformed. Tanith had helped with the preparations herself. She had polished the silver candelabras until they gleamed like trapped starlight. She had scattered rose petals along the ceremonial path and pressed the altar cloths until not a single wrinkle remained. For 3 weeks, every servant in the castle had worked themselves to exhaustion preparing for this night, the night their Alpha King would finally take a mate. Now, hidden behind the massive stone pillar at the back of the hall, Tanith watched the fruits of her labor through a gap no wider than her hand. She should not be here. Servants were forbidden from attending royal ceremonies unless they were actively serving. If anyone found her, she would be whipped at best, executed at worst. But she had to see. She had to watch Kael bind himself to Lady Selene, had to burn the image into her memory so thoroughly that her foolish heart would finally understand what it could never have. The hall was packed beyond capacity. Every noble house of Valdres had sent representatives, along with delegations from 6 neighboring kingdoms. They whispered behind jeweled fans and exchanged meaningful glances, all of them acutely aware that they were witnessing history. For 10 years, Alpha King Kael had searched for his fated mate. He had traveled to distant lands, attended countless gatherings, and met thousands of eligible wolves. His advisors had grown desperate. His council had begged him to simply choose someone, anyone, and secure the succession, but Kael had refused. "I will know her when I find her," he had reportedly said. "My wolf will know." Except his wolf was dying. Tanith had heard the rumors like everyone else. The king's shifts had grown unpredictable, painful. His wolf, once a magnificent beast of silver and black, now emerged ragged and weak. Some said he had mere months before the animal spirit inside him faded entirely. And when a shifter lost their wolf, they lost everything. Their strength, their senses, their sanity. So finally, reluctantly, Kale had agreed to a political mating. Lady Selene came from House Harrow, the most powerful noble house in the kingdom. Her family controlled the Eastern Territories, commanded 3,000 warriors, and had produced more beta commanders than any other bloodline in Valdris history. She was also beautiful enough to make poets weep. Tanith watched Selene ascend the dais in her elaborate gown, all white silk and golden embroidery. Her dark hair had been arranged in an intricate crown of braids. Diamonds dripped from her ears and throat. She looked like a goddess made flesh. And then Kale stepped into view. Tanith's breath caught painfully in her chest. The king wore black, as always. Simple clothing compared to the elaborate costumes around him, but on his frame, simplicity became statement. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, arms corded with muscle that strained against the fabric of his shirt. His face might have been carved from granite, all sharp angles and harsh beauty, and those winter-pale eyes scanned the crowd with the restless intensity of a predator seeking prey. He looked magnificent. He looked exhausted. Tanith's heart ached for him even as she told herself she had no right. She was nothing to him. Less than nothing. A servant he had probably never noticed, despite the 3 years she had lived beneath his roof. The priest raised his hands. The crowd fell silent. "We gather to witness the sacred bond of mates," he intoned, "to join our Alpha King to his chosen queen. Let any who would object speak now, or forever, hold their peace." Silence. Of course, silence. Who would dare? Kale took Selene's hand. The woman smiled up at him with obvious triumph. And that was when Tanith felt it. A pulse. Something deep in her chest, something she had kept carefully dormant for years, suddenly stirred. Her shoulder blade burned where the mark lay hidden beneath her dress. The shadows around her seemed to thicken, reaching toward her like living things. No, not now. She pressed her palm against the pillar, willing herself calm. She had not lost control since childhood. She would not lose control now. But on the dais, Kale had gone rigid. His hand tightened around Selene's until the woman winced. His head turned slowly, inch by inch, until he was staring directly at the pillar where Tanith hid. His nostrils flared. His pupils dilated until barely any gray remained. And then he released Selene entirely. "Stop." The word cracked through the hall like thunder. The priest stammered, Selene's face drained of color. Every noble in attendance exchanged bewildered glances. Kale descended the dais steps with predatory grace, his gaze never wavering from Tanith's hiding spot. "There is someone here," he said, his voice rough in a way she had never heard before. "Someone who should not be hiding." Guards rushed forward. Tanith's instinct screamed at her to run, to vanish, and to use the gifts she had suppressed for so long, but using them would reveal what she was, and revelation meant death. The guards reached the pillar. They found her immediately. "Please," Tanith gasped as rough hands seized her arms. "Please, I was just watching. I did not mean any harm." They dragged her into the light. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs as they saw her servant's dress, her calloused hands, and her unremarkable face. "A servant?" Someone scoffed. "He stopped the ceremony for a servant." They forced her to her knees before the dais. Tanith kept her head bowed, her pulse spiking so violently she could hear nothing else. A shadow fell over her. "Look at me." The command was quiet, absolute. Tanith raised her head. Kale stood before her, close enough to touch. And his eyes, those silver-flecked irises she had memorized from a distance, now fixed upon her with an intensity that stole her breath. "You," he said softly. "My wolf knows you." Tanith could not speak, could not move, could only stare as the most powerful man in Valdris knelt before her, bringing his face level with hers, inhaling deeply as if trying to memorize her scent. When he spoke again, his voice carried to every corner of the hall. "This woman is my mate, my fated mate." He rose, turning to face the stunned assembly. "Prepare a new ceremony. The one I will be claiming is her." Chaos erupted, and Tanith realized that her life, her careful, invisible life, had just shattered beyond repair. The next hour passed in a blur of noise and motion. Tanith was escorted to a chamber she had never seen before, all velvet and polished wood, where a team of confused maids stripped her servant's dress and replaced it with something silk and green. They scrubbed her face, arranged her dark hair, dabbed perfume at her throat. Through it all, she remained mute with shock. This could not be happening. The Alpha King could not have claimed her as his fated mate. She was nobody, a servant with a dangerous secret. And he was a king whose wolf had reportedly been dying until the moment he scented her. A knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. The maids scattered as the door swung open and Kale himself stepped inside. He had not changed from the ceremony, still wore that black shirt with sleeves pushed to his elbows, still radiated that barely contained power that made the air feel thick. But something had shifted in his expression. The cold control she had observed from afar had cracked, revealing something almost vulnerable beneath. "Leave us," he told the maids. They fled. Then it was just the two of them, alone in a room that suddenly felt far too small. "What is your name?" Kale asked. Tanith swallowed. "Tanith, Your Majesty." "Tanith." He repeated it slowly, as if tasting the syllables. "My wolf has been searching for you for 10 years, and you have been here, in my castle, this entire time. I am just a servant. You are my fated mate." The words hung between them. Tanith shook her head, desperate to make him understand. "Your Majesty, there has been some mistake. I am no one. I have no family, no bloodline worth mentioning, and no dowry. I scrub floors and carry linens. I am not fit to be anyone's mate, least of all a king's." Kale stepped closer. This near, she could see the individual threads of silver in his irises, could smell pine and winter wind, and something darker beneath. Something wild. His wolf, she realized. She was scenting his wolf, and it was nothing like the dying creature the rumors described. It felt ancient, powerful, ravenous. "My wolf does not care about bloodlines," Kale said quietly. "It cares about you. For 10 years I felt nothing, a void where the bond should be. And tonight, the moment you stepped into that hall, my wolf nearly tore through my skin to reach you. I did not step in. I was hiding." "Yes, you were hiding." His jaw tightened. "Why? Why would my fated mate hide from me?" "Because I am Veilborn. Because your kingdom hunted my people to extinction. Because if you knew what I was, you would execute me yourself." She could not say any of that. "I did not know," she whispered instead. "I did not know I was your mate. I just wanted to see the ceremony. I thought—" She broke off, heat flooding her cheeks. "You thought what?" "I thought watching you claim another woman would help me forget you." The confession escaped before she could stop it. Tanith's eyes widened with horror at her own words. But Kale went very still. "Forget me," he repeated slowly. "You have been thinking about me?" Tanith wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "It does not matter. What matters is that you cannot mate with me. Lady Solène, her family is powerful. They will not forgive this insult. And I have nothing to offer you. Nothing at all." I do not care what they forgive. You should. You are a king. I am a man. Kale closed the remaining distance between them until they stood toe-to-toe. A man whose wolf has been dying for a decade. A man who stopped feeling anything years ago. And tonight, the moment my wolf sensed you, I felt something I had forgotten was possible. Tanith looked up at him. What? Alive. His voice was rough, scraped raw. I felt alive. The words struck her like physical blows. She could see the truth of them in his eyes, in the desperate hunger barely leashed behind that stern facade. He needed her. Not politically, not strategically, but fundamentally. His survival depended on the bond they shared. And she could not tell him why that bond was dangerous. Your Majesty, she tried again, there are things about me you do not know. Then tell me. I cannot. His brow furrowed. Why? Tanith searched for something, anything that might satisfy him without revealing the truth. Everyone has secrets, she said carefully, parts of themselves they cannot share. I am no different. What I can tell you is that I have nothing that would harm you or your kingdom. I simply have a past I would prefer to leave buried. Kale studied her for a long moment. His gaze was penetrating, far too intelligent for comfort. My wolf trusts you, he said finally. It has never trusted anyone before. Whatever secrets you carry, they did not stop the bond from forming. He reached out, slow enough that she could pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. I will not force you to reveal them, but I will ask you this instead. Will you accept me? Tanith's breath caught. Accept you? As your mate, your husband, your king. His hand lingered against her cheek, warm and calloused and impossibly gentle. I am offering you everything I have, my name, my protection, my throne. In return, I ask only that you try. It was more than generous. It was extraordinary. Your Majesty, she whispered, if I say yes, it cannot be undone. I know. She met those winter-pale eyes and said, yes. The smile that transformed Kale's face stole her breath entirely. Then a knock shattered the moment. Your Majesty. A guard's voice, urgent. Lady Selene's mother demands an audience. She says there will be consequences if you proceed with this irregularity. Kale's smile vanished, replaced by cold stone. Tell Lady Harrow she may demand whatever she likes. He did not look away from Tanith. The mating ceremony will proceed at midnight, and anyone who interferes will answer to my wolf. The guard retreated. Dread coiled through Tanith's stomach. Harrow. The name echoed through her memory like a death knell. Lady Harrow, head of House Harrow. Lady Harrow, who had spent 3 decades rooting out unnatural bloodlines. Lady Harrow, who had personally ordered the purge that killed Tanith's mother and every other Veilborn in the realm, and now that woman was coming for her. The midnight ceremony was nothing like the elaborate spectacle that had been planned for Selene. There were no rose petals, no diamond chandeliers, no hundreds of watching nobles. Instead, Tanith stood in the castle's private chapel with only a handful of witnesses, Kale's most trusted advisor, a priest who looked like he had been roused from sleep, and 4 guards positioned at every door. It felt less like a royal mating and more like a secret. Perhaps that was appropriate. Tanith wore the green silk dress the maids had forced upon her, but she had convinced them to add a shawl across her shoulders. The fabric covered her back entirely, hiding the mark that burned beneath like a brand. Kale stood at the altar, waiting for her. He had changed into fresh clothes, black again, but more formal now, with silver threading the collar and cuffs. The candlelight caught the harsh angles of his face and softened them into something almost gentle. He watched her approach with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You came, he said quietly when she reached him. Did you think I would run? The thought crossed my mind. A ghost of humor flickered in his eyes. You hid from me for 3 years. A midnight escape would hardly be surprising. I did not hide from you specifically. I hid from everyone. Yet I found you anyway. He took her hands, and despite everything, despite the terror coiling in her stomach and the danger circling ever closer, Tanith felt warmth spread through her at his touch. My wolf found you. The priest cleared his throat. Your Majesty, shall we proceed? Kale nodded without looking away from Tanith. Proceed. The ceremony was brief. Ancient words spoken over clasped hands, vows exchanged in voices that echoed through the empty chapel. When the priest asked if she would accept this man as her mate, her alpha, her king, Tanith heard herself say, I will, as if from a great distance. Then came the claiming. The verbal bond has been sealed, the priest announced. For the physical bond, the alpha must mark his mate upon the skin. Tanith tensed. Kale stepped closer, his hands settling on her shoulders with careful gentleness. I need to mark you. Where would you prefer? Traditionally, the mark went on the neck. A visible claim, impossible to hide. But Tanith could not bare her neck. Could not risk him seeing how the Veilborn mark crept up toward her shoulder. My wrist, she said quickly. Mark my wrist. Kale's brow furrowed. That is unusual. Please. She heard the desperation in her own voice. I will explain later, but please, not my neck. My wrist will serve just as well. For a long moment, he simply looked at her. She could see the questions burning behind his eyes. Then he lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to her racing pulse. As you wish. Relief flooded through her. Kale's mouth opened against her wrist, and she felt the scrape of teeth, the sharp sting of pressure, and then a rush of something overwhelming. Heat poured through the bite, spreading up her arm and into her chest, wrapping around her heart like a living thing. The mate bond. It snapped into place with an almost audible click. Tanith gasped. She could feel him now, a presence in the back of her mind that had not existed moments before. Could sense his emotions bleeding through the connection. Relief, hunger, triumph, and beneath it all, a desperate, aching tenderness that made her eyes sting. Kale released her wrist, his tongue soothing over the mark he had left. When he straightened, his eyes had gone silver, his wolf surging close to the surface. Mine, he said, the word more growl than speech. Yours, Tanith whispered. The priest pronounced them mated, and Kale cupped her face in both hands and kissed her. It was not a gentle kiss. It was consuming, claiming. His mouth moved over hers with a hunger that stole her breath and her thoughts, and every logical objection she had been clinging to. Tanith found herself rising onto her toes, her hands fisting in his shirt, kissing him back with an intensity that shocked her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. I have waited 10 years for you, he said roughly. Whatever happens next, I need you to know that I do not regret this. Her chest tightened painfully. You might, she thought. When you learn what I am, you might regret everything. The chapel doors burst open. Lady Harrow swept in like a storm, her silver hair immaculate, and her pale eyes blazing with fury. Behind her came Selene, beautiful face twisted with rage, and a retinue of guards wearing House Harrow colors. This ceremony is invalid, Lady Harrow announced. I demand it be annulled immediately. Kale positioned himself between Tanith and the newcomers. You demand nothing in my presence, Lady Harrow. Your Majesty. The woman's lips curved. You have been deceived. This woman is not fit to be your queen. Careful, Kale warned. But Lady Harrow stepped closer, her gaze fixed on Tanith with unnerving intensity. Do you think I would not investigate the servant who stole my daughter's place? Tanith, no family name, appeared in the castle 3 years ago with forged references. Before that, no records at all. Cold horror washed over Tanith. There are gaps in many servants' histories, Kale said flatly. True, but poverty does not explain what my trackers found. Lady Harrow produced a folded document. A village destroyed 15 years ago, burned to the ground, every resident killed. The chapel went silent. Do you know what lived in that village, Your Majesty? Lady Harrow's voice dropped to a whisper. Veilborn, shadow-touched abominations. And somehow, this woman survived. Kale turned to look at Tanith, and the question in his eyes was the most terrifying thing she had ever seen. Tanith, he said slowly, what is she talking about? Before Tanith could answer, Lady Harrow struck. Guards, seize her, strip her to the waist. If she bears the mark of the Veilborn, she dies tonight. The guards surged forward, and Tanith, cornered and desperate and out of options, did the only thing she could. She let the shadows take her. The shadows erupted from Tanith like a living thing. They coiled around her body, dense and dark, swallowing the candlelight and plunging half the chapel into blackness. The guards stumbled backward with shouts of terror. Lady Harrow's triumphant expression twisted into something ugly. Veilborn! She shrieked. Kill her now! But Tanith was already moving. The shadows carried her backward, away from the grasping hands, toward the chapel's rear door. She had not used her gift in 15 years, not since the night her village burned and her mother shoved her into the darkness with a single desperate command. Run, hide, survive. She had survived. But survival meant nothing if she died here, mere moments after finding the one thing she had never allowed herself to want. The rear door was 10 feet away. 5 feet. 3. A hand closed around her wrist. Not a guard's hand. Not Lady Harrow's. Kale's. He had moved faster than should have been possible, and now he stood between Tanith and the door, his grip unbreakable, his silver eyes blazing through the darkness she had created. Stop, he commanded, but he was not speaking to her. He turned to face Lady Harrow and her guards, positioning his body as a shield in front of Tanith. The next person who moves toward my mate dies, he said. His voice was calm, quiet, absolutely terrifying. Lady Harrow's face contorted. Your Majesty, you cannot protect this creature. She is Veilborn, an abomination. Her kind were purged for good reason. Her kind were purged because my grandfather was a coward who feared what he did not understand. Kale's grip on Tanith's wrist tightened possessively. I am not my grandfather. The law? I am the law. Silence fell over the chapel like a weight. Tanith stared at the back of Kale's head, her pulse racing. He was defending her. Despite what he had just witnessed, despite learning that she was the very thing his kingdom had spent decades hunting, he was standing between her and death. Leave, Kale continued, his voice dropping dangerously. All of you. Now. If I see any member of House Harrow within the castle walls by sunrise, I will consider it an act of treason. Lady Harrow's pale eyes burned with hatred. You will regret this, Your Majesty. When your people learn what you have mated, they will tear her apart. That sounds like a threat. It is a promise. She swept from the chapel, her daughter and guards following. The doors slammed shut, and suddenly Tanith and Kale were alone. The shadows began to fade. Tanith tried to pull them back, but 15 years of suppression had left her gift wild and unpredictable. The darkness receded in uneven waves, leaving her exposed and trembling. Kale released her wrist and turned to face her. For a long moment neither spoke. Veilborn, he said finally, I thought your kind were extinct. So did everyone. Her voice came out hoarse. That was the point. You have been hiding in my castle for 3 years. Yes. Hiding from everyone. Yes. Kale stepped closer. Tanith forced herself not to retreat. My wolf noticed you, he said quietly. The moment you entered that hall, my wolf knew exactly what you were, and it did not care. Your wolf was dying. It was desperate. My wolf was waiting. He stopped directly in front of her. Waiting for you. For 15 years, Tanith. My wolf has been searching for a Veilborn mate. The words made no sense. That is impossible, Tanith whispered. The Veilborn were enemies of your bloodline. Your grandfather ordered the purge himself. Yes, and do you know why? She shook her head. Kyle's jaw tightened. Something old and painful flickered in his eyes. Because a Veilborn woman cursed him, he said. Cursed our entire line. She was his true mate, and he rejected her out of fear. So she cursed his wolf to fade, and every wolf born to his descendants after him. His voice roughened. The only cure was to find another Veilborn mate, to complete the bond that he had broken. The air left Tanith's lungs. Your grandfather hunted the Veilborn to extinction, she said slowly, because he was afraid of what would happen if his descendants found one. He wanted to ensure no one could ever complete the bond. He thought if all the Veilborn were dead, the curse would die with them. Kale's laugh was harsh. Instead, he condemned every king after him to watch their wolf slowly die. My father lasted until 40. His father barely reached 30. I am 28, and until tonight, I had accepted that I would not see 31. The weight of it crushed her. All those years of hiding, all those years of terror and loneliness, and the very people who had slaughtered her kind had needed them to survive. Why did you not tell me? She asked. Before the ceremony, you never mentioned this. Would it have changed your answer? Tanith considered the question. Would she have agreed to mate him if she had known his survival depended on her? I do not know, she admitted. That is why I did not tell you. Kyle reached out, his hand hovering near her face without quite touching. I wanted you to choose me, not my curse. Me. The vulnerability in his voice undid something inside her. Tanith closed the distance between them, pressing her cheek into his palm. I chose you, she said softly. I am terrified, and I have no idea what happens next. But I chose you. Kale exhaled, a shuddering breath that seemed to release years of tension. Then he pulled her into his arms. The embrace was fierce, almost desperate. He held her like she might disappear, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other pressed flat against her spine. Tanith buried her face in his chest and let herself feel, for the first time in 15 years, something other than fear. His hand moved lower, tracing down her back. She stiffened. The shawl had slipped during her shadow burst. If he moved his hand just a few inches higher, he would feel the raised edges of her mark. Tanith? Kale felt her tension. What is wrong? Nothing. She pulled back slightly, adjusting the shawl with trembling fingers. I am just overwhelmed. He studied her face. She could see the questions forming, the suspicion. But he did not push. You are exhausted, he said instead. We have much to discuss, but that can wait until morning. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Tonight you sleep. You are safe now, Tanith. Whatever comes next, I will protect you. She wanted to believe him, but as he led her from the chapel, Tanith could not shake the feeling that the danger was only beginning. And the greatest threat might not be Lady Harrow at all. The weeks that followed were the strangest of Tanith's life. She had spent 3 years as a servant, invisible and overlooked. Now she was queen, and everyone looked at her constantly. Courtiers whispered as she passed. Servants who had once ignored her now bowed and called her, Your Majesty. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like waking from a long, cold sleep. Kyle was the reason. He was nothing like the distant, dying king she had observed from afar. In private, away from the court's watchful eyes, he was warm and attentive and unexpectedly tender. He brought her books from the royal library when he learned she loved to read. He walked with her in the gardens at dusk. He asked about her childhood with genuine curiosity, listening carefully to the fragments she was willing to share. And at night, he came to her chambers. They had not fully consummated the bond. Kale insisted on waiting until she was ready. But he stayed with her each night, holding her in the darkness, his body curved protectively around hers. Tanith learned the geography of him in those hours. The scar along his ribs from a childhood training accident. The way his breath deepened when he slept. The temperature of his skin, always slightly too warm, as if a fire burned perpetually beneath the surface. She also learned that something was still wrong. His wolf should have healed the moment they completed the mating ceremony. The curse should have been weakened by the bond between them. But Tanith felt the tremors that shook him some nights, saw the way his hands sometimes flickered with silver light, his wolf pushing toward the surface without his consent. Watched him grimace and clutch his chest when he thought she was not looking. "You are still sick," she said one evening as they sat before the fire. "The bond has not cured you." Kale's expression shuddered. "The bond has helped. My wolf is stronger than it has been in years. But it is not healed." Silence stretched between them. "The curse is old," Kyle admitted finally. "Centuries of built-up magic. One bond cannot undo all of it in weeks." "Then what will?" He did not answer. "Kale." Tanith shifted to face him. "What are you not telling me?" For a moment she thought he would deflect. Instead, he met her eyes with a weariness that made her chest ache. "The curse requires a complete bond to break," he said quietly. "Not just the verbal claiming, not just the wrist mark, the full physical bond, the joining of bodies and souls." Her heartbeat stuttered. "Then we should—" "No." The word came out sharp. Kale softened it immediately, reaching for her hand. "Not yet. There are complications." "What kind of complications?" His jaw worked. "The curse was designed to punish," he said slowly, "to make the cure as dangerous as the disease. When a king of my line fully bonds with his Veilborn mate, the curse fights back. It has killed every king who attempted it before me." The fire crackled. Tanith forgot how to breathe. "Every king," she repeated. "How many?" "3. Over the centuries, 3 Veilborn mates were found before the purge. All 3 kings died within hours of completing the bond." "And their mates?" Kale's silence was answer enough. "So, if we complete the bond," Tanith said, her voice barely audible, "you might die. And so might I." "Yes. And if we do not complete the bond, your wolf will continue to fade until it kills you anyway." "Yes." The impossibility of it swept through her. They were trapped. Damned if they moved forward, damned if they stayed still. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Kale rose, his expression hardening into the cold mask of the Alpha King. "Enter." A guard stepped inside, bowing low. "Your Majesty, there is a visitor at the gates. He claims to have information about the Queen's past." Tanith's heart stopped. "What visitor?" Kale demanded. "He says his name is Mordecai Vane, Your Majesty. He says he is the Queen's brother." The world tilted. Tanith gripped the arm of her chair. Mordecai. The name she had not spoken in 15 years. The brother she had believed dead. "I have no brother," she heard herself say. "He is lying." But Kale was watching her face, seeing too much. "Bring him to the audience chamber," he ordered. "We will hear what he has to say." The guard departed. Kale turned to Tanith, his eyes sharp. "You told me your entire family was killed in the purge. Were you lying?" "I thought they were." Her voice cracked. "I thought I was the only one left." "And if this man truly is your brother?" "Then everything becomes more complicated," Tanith thought. Because Mordecai knew things about her that no one else in the world knew. If Lady Harrow got to him first— "I need to see him," Tanith said, rising. "I need to know if it is really him." She moved toward the door, but Kale caught her arm. "Tanith." His grip was gentle but firm. "Whatever happens in that room, whatever this man says, remember that you are my mate, my queen." Nothing he reveals will change that. She wanted to believe him, but as they walked toward the audience chamber, Tanith could feel the weight of her secrets pressing down like stones. The man standing in the audience chamber looked like a ghost. He had Tanith's dark hair, her sharp cheekbones, and her too pale skin. But where she had learned to hide and soften, this man radiated danger. Scars crossed his face like claw marks. His eyes, the same deep brown as hers, held a wildness that made the guards grip their weapons tighter. Tanith. His voice was rough, unused. You survived? She stopped several feet away. 15 years of grief swept through her like a tide. Mordecai. The name tasted like ash. How? The same way you did. I ran. I hid. I survived. His gaze flickered to Kale. Though I did not manage to marry a king. Watch your tone, Kale said coldly. Mordecai's scarred mouth twisted. Forgive me. I have spent 15 years living like an animal. My manners have suffered. Why are you here? Tanith demanded. After all this time, why now? Because I heard the rumors. A Veilborn queen in Valdris. Mordecai stepped closer. I had to see if my little sister had really crawled out of the shadows and claimed a throne. I claimed nothing. The king chose me. Did he? Mordecai's eyes narrowed. Or did the curse choose you? Tanith stiffened. How do you know about the curse? I know many things. I have spent 15 years hunting for answers. Hunting for the people who destroyed our family. His gaze hardened. And hunting for you. Kale shifted protectively in front of Tanith. You have found her. Now speak plainly. What do you want? Mordecai studied the king with unsettling intensity. I want to help you break the curse. Silence fell. You know how to break it? Tanith asked, hope and suspicion warring in her chest. I know more than that. Mordecai reached into his coat, moving slowly so the guards would not strike. He withdrew a yellowed document. I know who truly created the curse, and I know why the Veilborn were really hunted. He held out the document. Tanith took it with trembling hands. It was a letter, written in archaic script, bearing the royal seal from 2 centuries past. What is this? Kale demanded. His eyes narrowed with suspicion. This contradicts everything my family has known for generations. How convenient that you arrive with a different answer. Convenient or not, the proof is in your hands, Mordecai replied smoothly. Tanith read the words aloud. I have made a terrible mistake. The Veilborn woman did not curse me out of malice. She cursed me because I stole something from her. Something that belonged to the Veilborn alone. I took it to make my wolf stronger. But the magic turned against me. Now I am dying, and my heirs will die after me unless they return what was stolen. I have hidden it where no one will find it. I would rather my entire bloodline perish than admit what I have done. Tanith looked up. What did he steal? Mordecai's expression was grim. The Heart of Shadows. A Veilborn artifact that could amplify any wolf's power 100-fold. Your ancestor ripped it from our people, and the curse was our response. He paused. The curse cannot be broken by bonding alone. It can only be broken by returning what was taken. And you know where this artifact is? Kale asked. I have spent 15 years searching. And yes, I finally found it. Mordecai's eyes locked onto Tanith. 'Tis hidden in the vault beneath this very castle, guarded by magic that only a Veilborn can pass. The implication struck Tanith like a wave. She could break the curse. She could save Kale without either of them dying. Then we retrieve it, she said immediately. Tonight. Tanith. Kyle caught her arm. We cannot trust him. We know nothing about this man except that he appeared at the perfect moment with exactly the information we needed. He is my brother. He is a stranger who claims to be your brother. I remember him. Tanith turned to face Kale fully. I remember his face, his voice, the scar on his left hand from when he cut himself learning to carve wood. He is real, Kale. And if what he says is true, if it is true, then why reveal it now? Because I had to be certain, Mordecai interjected. The vault is protected by ancient magic. If a Veilborn approaches without pure intention, they die. I needed to know my sister had not been corrupted by this place. And have I passed your test? Tanith asked bitterly. Mordecai's expression softened. Yes, Tanith. You have passed. Kale's grip on her arm tightened. She could feel his resistance through the bond, but beneath all of it, she also felt hope. We will go together, Tanith said firmly. All three of us. If Mordecai is telling the truth, we break the curse tonight. If he is lying, you will be there to stop him. Kale's jaw worked. Finally, he exhaled. Together, he agreed. But if anything feels wrong, we leave immediately. The vault was located deep beneath the castle, accessible through a hidden passage in the king's private study. As they descended the narrow stairs, Tanith felt the air grow heavy with magic. She could sense the artifact now, a pulse of shadow calling to her blood. It is here, she breathed. I can feel it. The passage opened into a circular chamber. At its center, on a pedestal of black marble, sat a small obsidian box. Even from across the room, Tanith could feel the power radiating from it. The heart of shadows, Mordecai said reverently. Go, sister, claim what is ours. Tanith stepped forward. The magic pressed against her, testing, probing. She felt it brush against her mind, searching for deception. She had none. Her hand closed around the box, and the world exploded into light. Power surged through her, ancient and vast, filling every corner of her being. The mark on her back burned white-hot, and she cried out, but she did not let go. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Tanith stood holding the box, breathing hard, alive and whole. You did it, Mordecai said, wonder in his voice. You actually did it. Tanith turned to Kale, triumph flooding through her. We can break the curse now. We can... She stopped. Kale had gone rigid. His face was pale, his eyes wide, fixed on something behind her. Kale, what is wrong? He did not answer. His gaze dropped to the box in her hands, and something terrible moved across his expression. Tanith, he said slowly, what is on your back? Her breath seized. The shawl. In the surge of power, her shawl had slipped, and now her back was exposed. But that was not what Kale was staring at. He was staring at the new mark. The one that had appeared beneath the first, burned into her skin by the heart of shadows. What is it? She whispered. Kale, what do you see? His voice came out broken. The same mark that is on the box. The mark of the curse-bearer. He looked at her with dawning horror. Tanith, you did not break the curse. You absorbed it. The box fell from her nerveless fingers, and Kale collapsed. Tanith caught Kale before he hit the ground. His weight nearly dragged them both down, but she braced herself, lowering him as gently as she could onto the cold stone floor. His skin had gone gray. His breathing was shallow, rapid, wrong. Kale. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heart flutter like a trapped bird. Stay with me, please. His eyes opened, but they were solid silver, his wolf surging to the surface with desperate, dying strength. The curse, he gasped. It is leaving me, going into you. Then let it go. Tanith gripped his face with both hands. Let it all go. I can handle it. You do not understand. His hand closed around her wrist, weak but insistent. The curse was never meant to be held by a Veilborn. It was designed to destroy us. If you take it fully, it will kill you. Then we find another way. There is no other way. His voice cracked. Tanith, you have to let me die. It is the only way to save you. No. The word tore from her throat. I did not survive 15 years of hiding just to watch you die in my arms. Mordecai knelt beside them, his expression unreadable. She is right. Your Majesty. There may be another option. Kale's silver eyes fixed on him with hatred. You knew this would happen. You led her here knowing she would absorb the curse. I led her here knowing she was the only one who could. Mordecai's voice was steady. The Heart of Shadows was created by our ancestors to protect our people. When your ancestor stole it, he corrupted its purpose. Now it seeks to return to its true function. Which is what? Tanith demanded. Balance. The heart does not want to destroy, it wants to restore what was broken. But it cannot do that while the curse exists. Then how do we destroy the curse? You cannot destroy it, but you can transform it. Mordecai touched the obsidian box where it lay on the floor. The curse was created from stolen power and broken bonds. The only thing that can transform it is the opposite. Power freely given, and a bond truly completed. Tanith's heart stopped. The full mating bond. Yes. But not as it was attempted before. Mordecai's gaze was intense. The previous kings who tried to complete the bond did so to save themselves. Their intention was selfish. The curse sensed that and struck them down. Then what must I do? Tanith asked. The bond must be completed with the intention of saving your mate, not yourself. You must be willing to die for him, truly and completely. Mordecai paused. And he must be willing to do the same for you. Mutual sacrifice, mutual surrender. Tanith looked down at Kale. His eyes had faded back to gray, but they were clouded with pain. You heard him, she said softly. We have to complete the bond. Both of us, willing to die for the other. No. Kale's voice was raw. I will not let you risk yourself. It is not your choice. Tanith. You said you would protect me. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his. Let me protect you back. Something broke in his expression. The fear, the resistance, all of it crumbled. I love you, he said roughly. I did not want to say it. I knew what it meant, what it would cost. But I cannot die without telling you. I love you, Tanith. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too. I have loved you since before I knew your name. His hand found her face, trembling but sure. Then let us do this, he said. Together. Mordecai stepped back, giving them space. The chamber pulsed around them, the Heart of Shadows responding to their intention. Tanith helped Kale sit up, his back against the pedestal. The mark, he said. I need to mark you properly. Your shoulder. Somewhere the bond can take root. Tanith's hand went to her shawl. The mark on her back that she had hidden her entire life. If she let him see it, there would be no more secrets between them. My back, she whispered. Mark me there. Over the brand. Tanith, what is on your back? Everything I have been hiding from you. She turned, reaching up to pull the shawl away entirely. Everything I was afraid would make you hate me. The fabric fell. She heard Kale's sharp intake of breath, felt his gaze moving over her exposed skin, taking in the intricate pattern of shadows that covered her shoulder blade. It is beautiful, he breathed. Tanith twisted to look at him over her shoulder. What? The mark. It is not a brand, Tanith. It is a map. His fingers traced the edges of the pattern, feather-light. A map of the Shadow Realm, the place the Veilborn came from. I do not understand. Neither do I, but I know what I see. His voice dropped to a whisper. And what I see is the most beautiful thing I have ever looked upon. The words shattered something inside her. Every fear, every shame, all of it dissolving under the weight of his acceptance. He did not hate her. He thought she was beautiful. Kale's mouth pressed against her shoulder blade, right at the center of the mark. His lips were warm, reverent. And then she felt his teeth, the sharp sting of the claiming bite. Power exploded through the bond. But it was not the curse's corruption. It was something pure and ancient and overwhelming. The bond sealed itself not through flesh alone, but through the totality of their surrender, body, soul, and intention woven into one. Tanith cried out. So did Kale. And then the chamber collapsed into darkness. Tanith woke to silence. She was lying on cold stone, her body aching in ways she could not name. The chamber around her had changed. The torches had gone out, but a soft silver light emanated from somewhere she could not identify. From her, she realized. The light was coming from her. She sat up slowly. The mark on her back felt different now. Alive. Pulsing with energy that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. Kyle. No answer. Panic surged through her. She scrambled to her feet, searching the darkness. He lay several feet away, motionless on the stone floor. The silver light from her skin illuminated his face, and what she saw made her stomach drop. Frost. It covered his chest, his arms, and his throat. The curse, instead of transforming, had intensified. Ice crystals climbed his skin like vines. No. Tanith dropped beside him. No, no, no. This was supposed to work. Mordecai said. She stopped. Mordecai. She looked around the chamber, but her brother was gone, vanished. Mordecai. Her voice echoed off the walls. Where are you? Silence answered. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, a laugh. Not Mordecai's voice. Lady Harrow emerged from the shadows, her silver hair gleaming and her pale eyes bright with triumph. He was never your brother, child, she said smoothly. Mordecai Vane died 15 years ago, along with the rest of your cursed kind. The man you trusted was one of my agents wearing a dead man's face. Tanith's world tilted. No. Yes. Lady Harrow stepped closer. I have been planning this for decades, ever since I learned the truth about the curse and the Heart of Shadows. You wanted me to absorb the curse. I wanted you to activate the heart. The curse was merely a convenient byproduct. Harrow's smile widened. The Heart of Shadows does not just hold power, it amplifies it. And now that power is inside you, uncontrolled and unstable, slowly killing you and your precious king. Tanith stared at the woman, horror and rage warring inside her. Why? What could you possibly gain? Everything. Harrow's eyes blazed. When the king dies, the throne passes to his nearest blood relative, his cousin Solène, my daughter. She spread her hands. And when you die, all that beautiful Veilborn power will be released. Power I have spent 30 years learning to harvest. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. You helped plan the original massacre, Tanith breathed. You wanted the Veilborn dead so you could steal their power. I spent 30 years extracting secrets from your kind before they died. Every Veilborn I captured told me something useful before the end. Harrow tilted her head. Your mother was particularly useful. She fought beautifully, released so much energy when she died. I have been living off that power ever since. Rage ignited in Tanith's chest. But it fades over time, Harrow continued. I need a fresh source, and you, child, are the last of your kind. Tanith looked at Kale, at the frost consuming him. If she died, he died. If she lived, Harrow would keep hunting her. There was no escape, no path that led to both of them surviving. Unless. The heart amplifies power, Tanith said slowly. Any power. Yes, that is rather the point. Including the power of the mate bond. Harrow's smile faltered. What? Tanith closed her eyes. She could feel the bond between her and Kyle, thin and flickering but still there. She could feel the heart inside her, vast and ancient and waiting. And she could feel something else. Something she had kept buried even deeper than her Veilborn gifts, the Shadow Realm, the place her ancestors came from. She had never been able to access it before, had never been strong enough, trained enough, and brave enough. But she was strong now. "You made a mistake," Tanith said, opening her eyes. The silver light around her intensified. "You taught me exactly what I needed to know." She rose to her feet, shadows beginning to swirl around her body. The heart amplifies, the bond connects, and the shadow realm welcomes its children home. Harrow stepped backward, alarm flickering across her face. "What are you doing?" "Something impossible." Tanith lifted her hand, and the darkness obeyed. Something only a Veilborn can do. She plunged her hand into her own chest and pulled out the curse. It came screaming, a writhing mass of ice and malice, centuries of hatred given form. It fought her, clawed at her, tried to drag her down into death. But Tanith held on, and then she threw it into the shadow realm. The darkness swallowed it whole. The curse was gone. But so was Tanith's strength. She collapsed beside Kale, her vision fading, her heart slowing. The last thing she heard was Lady Harrow's scream of fury. The last thing she felt was Kale's hand, no longer frozen, reaching for hers. Tanith drifted in darkness. Not the cold darkness of death, but something warmer, softer. The shadow realm. She was floating in the space between worlds, suspended in the place her ancestors called home. Voices surrounded her. Not words she could understand, but emotions. Welcome. Relief. Pride. "You did well, daughter." Tanith turned. A woman stood before her. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones, eyes the color of deep earth. "Mother?" The woman smiled. It was the smile Tanith remembered from childhood, warm and fierce and full of love. "You cannot stay here, little shadow," her mother said. "Your bond pulls you back. Your mate needs you." "Kale." Tanith reached for the thread she could feel connecting her to the living world. "Is he alive?" "He lives, but he cannot live long without you." Her mother's expression grew serious. "The curse is gone, but Lady Harrow remains. She has taken power she does not understand, and she will use it to destroy everything you love." "How do I stop her?" "You already know." Her mother pressed a hand to Tanith's chest. "The heart chose you for a reason, not because you are powerful, but because you are willing to love without condition, to sacrifice without expectation. That is the true strength of the Veilborn, not shadow, not darkness. Love." The words sank into Tanith like rain into parched earth. "Return now," her mother said. "Save your king, and end what I could not." The shadow realm began to fade. "Mother, wait." But she was already falling, tumbling through layers of darkness toward a distant point of light. And then she was awake. Tanith gasped, her eyes flying open. She was lying on something soft. A bed. Her bed, in her chambers, surrounded by familiar walls and the smell of lavender. "Tanith!" Kale's face appeared above her, haggard and pale but alive. So beautifully alive. "You came back," he breathed. "I felt you leave, felt the bond go dark. I thought—" His voice broke. Tanith reached up and pulled him down to her. The kiss was desperate, clumsy, and perfect. When they finally broke apart, Kale pressed his forehead to hers. "How long?" she asked. 3 days. You have been unconscious for 3 days." His hand cradled her face. "The healers said you might never wake, but I felt you fighting. Felt you climbing back toward me." "The curse?" "Gone. Completely gone." Wonder filled his voice. "My wolf is whole for the first time in my life." Relief flooded through her. But something else nagged at her memory. Harrow. Where is Lady Harrow? Kale's expression darkened. "She escaped the vault before my guards could reach her. She has barricaded herself in the eastern tower with House Harrow soldiers. They are demanding Selene be crowned queen and you be executed for witchcraft." Tanith sat up, ignoring the weakness in her limbs. "How many soldiers?" "Perhaps 100. "And how many are loyal to you?" "The rest of the army. Thousands." Kale's jaw tightened. But Harrow has done something. The tower is surrounded by some kind of barrier. Magic that burns anyone who approaches. Stolen Veilborn power, Tanith thought. Power harvested from my mother. I can break it, she said. You nearly died 3 days ago. And I will actually die if Harrow is allowed to keep using that power. Tanith swung her legs over the edge of the bed. She killed my mother, Kale. She killed my entire village. I will not let her take anything else from me. Kale studied her face. Together, he said finally. We do this together. Tanith took his hand. Together. The eastern tower rose against the morning sky like a blade. Tanith could see the barrier Harrow had described, a shimmering wall of stolen light that surrounded the structure. Soldiers lay where they had fallen trying to breach it, their skin blistered. She has been feeding off their pain, Tanith said quietly, growing stronger. Kale stood beside her, his wolf prowling just beneath his skin. Behind them, the royal army waited in tense silence. Can you truly break it? He asked. Yes. Tanith felt the certainty in her bones. The heart of shadows hummed inside her, no longer wild, but focused. But I need to get close. Then I will clear you a path. Before she could protest, Kale shifted. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. His body flowed like water, bones reforming, and skin giving way to silver-black fur. The wolf that emerged was massive, larger than any she had encountered, with eyes like storm clouds and power radiating from every line of its form. This was not a dying wolf. This was a king. Kale howled, the sound shaking the very air, and charged toward the tower. The barrier flared as he approached, but his wolf did not slow. He hit the light at full speed, his fur burning, and his snarl of pain audible even from where Tanith stood. But he pushed through. Tanith ran after him. The barrier tried to stop her too, but the heart recognized its own power, recognized the stolen energy and rejected it. The light parted around Tanith like water around stone. She burst through to find Kale's wolf standing over 2 fallen soldiers, his muzzle bloody, and his eyes fixed on the tower door. Go, he seemed to say. I will hold them here. Tanith did not hesitate. She plunged into the tower, shadows wrapping around her like armor. The stairs spiraled upward, and she took them 3 at a time. Lady Harrow waited at the top. The woman stood in the center of a ritual circle, her body wreathed in stolen light. She looked younger than before, her hair darker, her skin smoother. The power she had taken was remaking her. You should not have come back, Harrow said. You should have stayed in your shadow realm. There is nothing natural about what you have done. I have done what was necessary. Harrow spread her arms. The Veilborn hoarded their power while the rest of us struggled. I simply redistributed it. You murdered children. I eliminated threats. Tanith's shadows surged. Then eliminate this. The fight was brutal. Harrow wielded her stolen power with decades of practice, hurling bolts of light that seared wherever they struck. Tanith countered with darkness, but she was still weak from her ordeal in the shadow realm. She was losing. A blast of light caught her in the chest, sending her crashing against the wall. Pain exploded through her ribs. Harrow advanced, triumph blazing in her eyes. Your mother fought harder than this. She lasted nearly 10 minutes before I drained her dry. Rage ignited in Tanith's chest, but beneath the rage, something else stirred. Love. Her mother's love, still lingering in the shadow realm. Kale's love, burning through the mate bond. The love of every Veilborn who had died at Harrow's hands, their spirits reaching across the divide to offer strength. Tanith was not alone. She had never been alone. You made a mistake, Tanith said, rising to her feet. Harrow paused. What mistake? You think power is something you take. Tanith's shadows began to grow, fed by something deeper than her own strength. But real power is something you give. She opened herself to the mate bond, opened herself to the shadow realm, opened herself to every connection she had ever forged and every love she had ever felt. The heart of shadows responded. Power exploded from Tanith in a wave of darkness and light intertwined. It struck Harrow full in the chest, and the woman screamed as every stolen fragment of power was ripped from her body. The light returned to where it belonged, to the shadow realm, to the Veilborn dead, to the balance that had been broken. Harrow crumpled, suddenly old, suddenly frail, suddenly nothing more than a bitter woman who had traded her soul for power she could never truly possess. No, she whimpered. It was mine. Tanith stood over her. It was never yours, she said quietly. And now it never will be. Guards burst into the room, Kale in human form among them. He took one look at the scene and pulled Tanith into his arms. It is over, she said against his chest. It is finally over. 6 months later, Tanith stood on the castle balcony, watching the sun set over Valdris. So much had changed. Lady Harrow was imprisoned in the deepest cell of the royal dungeons, stripped of power and title. House Harrow had been disbanded, its lands redistributed to those who had suffered under her schemes. And Tanith was queen. Not the hidden, fearful queen she had expected to be, but a true ruler. She sat beside Kale in council meetings, her voice carrying equal weight. She walked through the kingdom without her face hidden, and the people had learned to see her not as a monster, but as their protector. The Veilborn were no longer hunted. Instead, they were mourned, remembered, honored. Tanith had established a memorial in the castle gardens, inscribed with every name she could find, including her mother's. You are thinking too loudly. Kale's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Through the bond, she felt his contentment, his love, his utter peace. I am thinking about everything we have built, she said softly, and everything we will build. His hand slid down to rest on her stomach. The healer confirmed it this morning. Tanith's breath caught. She had suspected, had hoped, but hearing the confirmation still overwhelmed her. A child. Their child. The first child born without the curse in 200 years. Kale murmured. The first to inherit a kingdom at peace. Tanith turned in his arms, looking up at the face she had loved from a distance for so long. The face she now woke to every morning. I was so afraid, she admitted. When I hid in that hall, watching your ceremony, I never imagined this. Neither did I. He cupped her face in his hands. I thought I was choosing a stranger to save my wolf. Instead, I found my entire world. Flatterer. Truth-teller. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, and her lips. My mate. My queen. My everything. Tanith melted into him. She had spent her life in shadows, hiding from a world that wanted her dead. Now she stood in the light, loved and loving, with a kingdom at her feet and a future brighter than she had ever dared imagine. She had hidden to watch the mating ceremony. He had stopped everything when he found her. And together, they had rewritten history.